Howdy, I'm Firebrand.
And I'm Armo.
And guess which two losers now have 2 kids and got addicted to Bluey like everyone else? Because Bluey is a publicly funded cartoon, that usually means it's required to be edifying in some way. Bluey does this by either giving lessons to kids or even the parents watching. Creator Joe Brum was very deliberate in his desire to make a show that is for all ages, and he absolutely nailed it. A 4-year-old can watch it and love it, and so can that 4-year-old's parents.
The episodes are only 7 minutes long, but they still manage to jam-pack a lot of emotion and joy into those 7 minutes. We've enjoyed so many of these episodes, so much so that just making a top 10 was not an option. We had to go bigger. But there were also episodes that clearly meant something special to each of us, so what do?
Well, we're giving you 2 countdowns for the price of 1. One of my 10 favorites and one of Ari's 10 favorites. For the record, we are only going to talk about the 150 episodes available in the United States as of January 25th, 2024. And we are going to alternate between each other, so I'll say my number 10, and then Ari will say hers, and so on.
Now, as Chili and Bingo say, the show must go on.
Okay, so my number 10 is a lot less emotionally charged than what you're gonna see from us later on the list. It's more nostalgic, if anything. Kids in the audience, cover your ears, because I'm about to shatter your worldview, okay? Are you out of the room? I'm gonna say the thing. Parents, if you're watching, I'm going to say the thing. You know, the holiday thing, okay? Okay, I stopped believing in both Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny when I caught my parents planting the goodies. I wasn't trying to be deliberate. It's just both times I wandered where I wasn't supposed to and saw things that I shouldn't have. And my parents, I love them, weren't great at salvaging a situation they were caught red-handed in. Luckily, Chili and Bandit have better improv skills.
This episode of Bluey is called Easter.
Easter not only means a lot to me and my family because of our faith, but we have a lot of great memories of doing the exact tradition that Chili and Bandit started here. Finding the Easter baskets was always a game. Whether it was riddles like here or just spooling yarn, it was an adventure. While we stopped doing Easter egg hunts because my older brother was just way too perceptive and stole all the eggs, I still look back fondly on stuff like this. And to see that same joy captured in this episode was a real treat.
I will get into the more emotional stuff later, but this first entry is special to me because of the way the story is told.
This episode of Bluey is called Facey Talk.
The framing device of a video call is brilliant in this era of Zoom being one of the most prominent forms of communication, though I'm still on Skype and stubbornly refuse to leave because I hate change. And the way that the writers incorporate the portability of the devices, the familiarity that a lot of modern kids have with tablets and phones, and the fun filters and gadgets available with this technology into the story is just fabulous. The details in the backgrounds as Muffin is running all over the house are fantastic, especially that freaking Cat Squad car that pops up in a lot of Muffin episodes. Honestly, you could rewatch this episode so many times and find so many little things to love. Just focus on one kid's screen at a time and look at the different reactions to each situation. It's fantastic. But perhaps the most powerful bit is the lesson in the background. Calm expression and communication is important in a relationship, especially a parenting one, and hogging being a parent is just as not okay as a kid hogging something from their sibling. Sharing the burdens and joys of being a parent is important, just as important as sharing is to kids.
Alright guys, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I'm a huge pushover. I hate rocking the boat and I don't like when people are mad at me. I often take the path of least resistance just to avoid conflict. Oftentimes, people need to advocate for me or light a fire under my bum just to advocate for myself before I actually do it. It's just hard for me. So when I see a nice old lady like Doreen getting taken advantage of, I think, yeah, I'd be that. That's why whenever we have a garage sale, Ari will be the one setting the prices and negotiating.
This episode of Bluey is called Granny Mobile.
But yeah, sometimes you need to be assertive as a way to respect yourself. Sometimes you need to be the Karen for good. Sometimes you need to talk to the manager because there's a legitimate problem. I think it's interesting that Muffin clearly dislikes being the grouchy granny, but does it anyway because that's what she was supposed to do. That was her role in the game, and she still did it. Even when the real grouchy granny was being a pill, Muffin didn't back down. A 4-year-old has more backbone than me. Excuse me, I'm going to stare at myself in the mirror and wonder where I went wrong.
First of all, I wish that no 4-year-old, or any kid, would ever have to be in the hospital. But the reality is, everyone gets sick. And that's what the episode does an excellent job of teaching.
This story is called Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound.
When I was little, we loved to make little movies, plays, music videos, and sharing them with each other and our families. It was so fun. So the idea of Bluey and her family and friends making a little movie to cheer Bingo up in the hospital really touched my heart. And me being the mom friend ISFJ gremlin that I am, I hate being sick. I hate having people take care of me. I need to take care of people. I hate feeling like I can't give 100%. I was sentenced to bed rest during the last month of my pregnancy. It was hard. But the simplicity and sweetness of the way they approached the message of everyone gets sick was absolutely perfect. I barely have words to explain this. This episode is just so cute. Not to mention the many, many funny moments. Toddler Socks stopping to take a poo, biting her dad's hand, then immediate cut to snacking on a cookie, and attacking Bandit's leg. Bandit is best bum monkey. With bum worms. Muffin breaking the vase and Bandit asking if we can edit that out. Then the dustpan evident in the next scene. And of course someone clearly was having a ball with the filters with Trixie. It really does scream home movie production. It's so funny.
Bandit's creative parenting never ceases to amaze us. I don't understand how he can just think on the fly of the brilliant scheme of getting his kids to play ragdoll in order to teach them about hard work, right off the top of his head.
This episode of Bluey is called Ragdoll.
In any case, the chief moral of the episode Ragdoll is teaching kids about delayed gratification and seeing how much you actually want something versus how far you're willing to go to get it. Now, that's an important lesson, but throughout the kids' little trial to get to the ice cream shop, there are many other lessons sprinkled in.
It drives me nuts too that I have no idea if that pun was intentional.
Perseverance, work smarter, not harder, improvise, adapt and overcome. Don't slouch on exercise, cause one day you may need to throw a heavy guy in a car.
Oh my god, you could grind meat on it.
Jokes aside, one thing that's consistently surprising about Bluey's writing is that they can pack so many messages into a measly 8 minutes and not come off preachy.
Obstacles do not block the path, they are the path.
I don't understand what you're saying.
That and Wendy is a queen!
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy. I paid for him.
Oh, yes. Here's your
Hey.
change.
If somehow you are new around here or just aren't familiar with my background, I initially went to college with the goal of becoming a teacher. I did not wind up pursuing that career, but I have been involved in children's education and development for most of my life. Starting with children's theater to substitute teaching and even juvenile probation, I am very interested in helping kids be the best they can be. So seeing perhaps the literal best portrayal of a teacher in all of media warms the tiniest little crevices of my heart.
This episode of Bluey is called Calypso.
The way that Calypso cleverly and almost effortlessly gets the kids to integrate their games with each other is something magical. She doesn't push them or force them to play together or even play at all. She just gives suggestions and prompts them to take their own actions. The kids in Bluey's class are adorable and I loved getting to know them. Though I wonder if Mackenzie and Winton were out sick that day. I love those two. And where did Pretzel go? And they are all so respectful and loving. I wanted to just stay in the classroom with them forever. And the music for this episode is a masterpiece, with each game having its own instrument. And they all eventually blend together. Pugly has a wonderful video on Calypso as a character that focuses heavily on this episode. So if you want a more in-depth analysis, I highly recommend you check it out.
If you do catch a fish, let me know.
Oh, okay. Why?
Because there's someone I'd like you to meet.
Aria and I have the same episode on both of our lists, so we're just going to wait until we get to that point on her list to talk about it.
Originally, Fireburn and I were not going to cover the newer episodes released in early 2024 in the US. We had the script written out as far back as September 2023, so we hadn't seen them yet. But as soon as I saw Bluey, Bandit, and Chili's starkly different art styles, I knew I was going to like this episode.
This episode of Bluey is called Dragon.
Firstly, anyone who knows anything about us knows we love Dungeons & Dragons, and this is like baby's first D&D campaign with pretty art. So many points right off the bat. But then we get to the memory spell, and we finally meet Chili's mom. We don't know much about her, but we do know she's no longer around, so when Chili shows her vulnerable side, my heart just melts. She's a wonderful mom, and you could tell her style of encouraging Bluey, offering to have her continue drawing, encouraging her to practice, is influenced heavily by her own mom. And of course, at the end, when she says goodbye to her horse that turns into a Pegasus and flies off into the sunset, the allegories, man, I burst into tears. Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up recording this, guys. This episode made me cry almost as much as numbers 3 and 1 did, but the Bandit Itchy Jocks subplot made me laugh enough to cover for it.
These jocks are itchy!
Okay, I know this is going to be weird to say, but Rusty is a portrayal of positive traditional masculinity in this show. He clearly prefers to play games where he saves princesses, fixes appliances around the house. Heck, he loves playing army because he loves his dad so much. He also loves taking care of kids, both real and pretend, and treats his wife, Indy, incredibly well once they figure out how to play mums and dads in a way that works for them. On top of that, he's polite, humble, and level-headed. He's a good boy. And this is especially shown here just how passionate and dedicated he is to improving in his favorite sport.
This episode of Bluey is called Cricket.
He's constantly being challenged and overcomes each one, whether it's by being careful, being quick, being dedicated, or being brave. I also love seeing how his whole family is so supportive and close, despite one member being absent for long periods of time. That speech Rusty's dad gives just tugs at the old heartstrings. I can only hope I can instill in my own children the courage to face any challenge head on, and also the humility to let someone else be happy and encouraged.
What a catch!
That's what cricket's about, kid.
I don't know how to relax.
This episode of Bluey is called Relax.
I don't know how to read anything that isn't a manga anymore. I don't know how to do a lot of the things I used to enjoy. I get writer's block all the time, even on projects I'm passionate about, and I can't unwind enough to fix myself. Maybe it's because technology is rotting my brain, but I feel like it happens to a lot of other people too, regardless of their level of technology exposure. So watching Chili struggle with just the concept of doing nothing is so very real to me. I doom scroll. I can't focus. I can't just sit and enjoy a book anymore, which I used to love doing. But when the episode focuses on Bluey and Bingo's holiday antics, I can't help but remember that relaxing doesn't have to mean doing nothing, but just doing something that you want to do that gives you a happy feeling. And reading manga and writing fanfiction and playing video games does that for me. There's also that feeling of, but I'm not allowed to relax because I have 387 things to do. And that's where Bandit comes in. He helps take those burdens off of his wife by offering her solutions that would allow her to free her mind. The kids won't get ready for the beach? Go without them. Having trouble relaxing? Just watch what they do and enjoy a cuppa. Not only does it show the struggles of relaxing, but how just a supportive partner and well-parented kids can make it easier.
I am shocked that this episode was allowed. Having an episode where a character says things like, kids today are so soft, back in my day, yada yada yada, and him actually being painted as the more correct one in the situation, in this day and age.
This episode of Bluey is called Pass the Parcel.
I did not expect this episode to go the direction it went, and I respect it for that. Pat, but everyone just calls him Lucky's dad, believes his winner-take-all version of Pass the Parcel is more fun than the modern everyone's a winner version. At first, he's not popular with either the kids or the adults, but something magical happens. The kid who wins the big prize wants to give that chance to someone else. They realize they would rather have the chance to get a really big prize rather than get a small consolation prize, and that anticipation as the parcel gets smaller and smaller generates enough excitement for the kids that they don't mind losing. And slowly but surely, Lucky's dad's rules spread like wildfire through the kids' party plans. Everyone is having more fun. Well, mostly everyone. Even then, Bingo slowly learns to be a graceful loser after her friend wins big. I really thought this episode was going a whole different direction, but it surprised me. Someone has to win Mario Kart, you know? I'm just so stunned that this episode exists. We've seen episodes of kids' cartoons that deal in serious subjects like death, but one where the guy calls your kids coddled and is allowed to be right in the end? That's considerably more rare. And even then, he learns a lesson too.
Well, Bingo, whatever way is okay with me.
What happened to raising a nation of squibs?
Oh, look, let them have some fun.
Parties are about the kids having fun, not about playing the game properly.
Bluey tackles so many difficult and heart-wrenching topics to the point where a lot of people have said that this show is more for the parents than the kids. And there are some episodes where I would probably agree more than most. One such episode is definitely The Show.
This episode of Bluey is called The Show.
Putting aside the fact that as a mom, I would absolutely die if my kids did something like this for me, the incredibly important lesson on how to persevere after disappointment is a powerful message for everyone.
I have a little cry.
Check,
Then I pick myself up,
check,
dust myself off,
check.
and keep going.
The kids get the more blatant example of Bingo continuing with the show after she felt like she ruined it, through no fault of her own, and the savvy adults in the audience understand the subtext of the balloon popping and Bandit immediately grabbing Chili's hand, therefore making the message hit even harder. Chili, and or even Brandy, as seen in Onesies, had to use her own advice before, when, through no fault of her own, something terrible happened to her balloon. It's so heartbreaking, and I wish that no one had to ever go through a loss like that. But the uplifting tone of the episode and the love the healers have for each other can't help but make you smile. There's plenty of comedy to offset the underlying tragedy, and the message is one of the most powerful and overt in the show. Just excellent all around, and it's one of my favorites because it's just so good.
J.R.R. Tolkien's On Fairy Stories is his most studied and most quoted essay. In it, he talks about what fairy tales are and what their purpose is. Bandit puts it very succinctly when Bingo asks him if fairy tales are true.
Well, no.
Phew.
But they've got true things in them.
Let me tell you, I'm a sucker for fairy tales, and this episode absolutely has some true things in it.
This episode of Bluey is called Fairy Tale.
I absolutely love the framing of Bandit's backstory as a fairy tale and relating the typical tropes you see in fairy tales to regular mundane things. The curse is just the honor system of Jinx. The princess is just child Chili cosplaying as She-Ra. The strange and dangerous far-off land is the 80s. And it's really funny and interesting to see just how the 2020's favorite animated dad started out as a little twerp. Because guess what? Your parents were probably twerps. Where do you think you got it from? Anyone who's grown up with multiple brothers can really relate to the dynamic he had with Stripe and Rad. Sure, they ragged, teased, and picked on each other, but in a weird way, it was how they showed love. And sure, times change and what's acceptable might change, or maybe you didn't like some aspects of how you were raised, so you might treat your kids differently than your parents treated you. But as long as there's love, and it's legal, it's okay. See, here it is. My number 7 and Ari's number 4 are the same episode.
Why?
Chaos Muffin!
I am a llama eating a banana. I'm coming, Flamingo. Coconuts and water with soup. Fly, Flamingo, fly! This episode of Bluey is called The Sleepover.
Fun fact, did you know that going 24 hours without sleep is the same as being drunk? Apparently, so did the writers at Bluey, because Muffin is a riot.
Yes, the lesson of take care of people, be considerate, don't be selfish when someone is clearly in need of help is a good one. But honestly, I would not even care if there was a lesson in here or not. We quote this episode to each other all the time. If our kids babble at us, Firebrand will ask, "Is your name Boo Boo Babu?" Or occasionally we'll just randomly yell, "Coconut!"
Every single line from Muffin in this episode is iconic. Even when she tells Bluey the next morning,
Maybe you should go to bed earlier.
"Oh, you cheeky little..."
Also, the idea that staying up late equals 8 o'clock does something weird to my night owl brain. Then again, nowadays, our staying up late is around 10:30, so...
Coconuts have water in them.
Shadowlands is required viewing for anybody playing a TTRPG. It is decreed in stone by the authority of probably a good idea.
This episode of Bluey is called Shadowlands.
I think I loved this episode from the name alone. Just Shadowlands. That's such a raw name for an episode in a kid's show. So yeah, the message of the episode can be misinterpreted very easily. It's not saying obey the rules of the game no matter what. It's saying don't change the rules the second you're slightly challenged. By all means, change rules if they make the game less fun. That's what homebrewing is for. But don't change rules because they challenge you. The rules are there in the first place because the rules make the game fun. When you're given restrictions, they breed creativity and imagination. It's so much harder to come up with an idea when you can do anything. But when you have guidelines, a framework, a focused point, that's when innovation starts. And yeah, it's not gatekeeping to tell people to play by the rules and to not change them if they can't hang. Because challenge, it can be a lot of fun. Also, you know, it's teaching kids about following the law and whatnot, yada yada. You've all jaywalked before, don't even pretend.
My parents had me when they were a little older. My mom is 63, my dad is 67, and I am only 30. I'll be 31 in June. Not to mention, I have only 2 remaining grandparents who I'm very close to. My grandma is 88, and my grandpa is 90. Both of them have a plethora of health issues. My grandma recently broke her hip and got it replaced. My grandpa went to the hospital for kidney and heart issues over Christmas 2023. So the message of take care of yourself, not just for yourself, but also for your loved ones, really hits home for me.
This episode of Bluey is called Granddad.
My grandpa used to dance with me on his hip, and I used to kick him like a horse whenever he'd stop. Not hard, mind you, just a gentle tap to keep going. And he loves telling that story to this day. But nowadays, he is shaped more like a question mark than the tall exclamation point of his youth. He is pale, and you can see the veins in his skin more clearly. He is slower than he used to be. When I see Chili's dad rebelling against his age, running around deliberately not resting like the doctor ordered, my heart clenches. This episode calls it heartworms, but we all know he was basically in the hospital for a while. For heart issues. It reminds me of my own grandpa, the stubborn, lovable man who refused to retire until he was 75. The beautiful, brilliant gentleman who has been in the hospital too many times for comfort lately. So when Chili pleads with her dad to take care of himself, I see a lot of myself in her. Because I still need my Grammy and Pa. And really, I always will. I think we all always will. I love you, Grammy. I love you, Pa.
Okay, I swear that this episode isn't this just because of the military stuff.
This episode of Bluey is called Army.
I mean, it's a nice bonus, but that's not the only reason. The big thing is Jack. He's often speculated to have attention deficit disorder. He doesn't ignore people, squirm around, or disobey because he's malicious or belligerent. He's literally trying not to do those things, but he can't help it.
Why can't you do with your toes? I don't know.
Oh, I relate to that so hard. Growing up, it was so difficult to sit still and do the things I needed to do. And even today, especially with our distraction rampant internet, which is my job, it's really hard to focus and do what needs to be done. It's not that I don't want to do it. I know I should. I need to do it, but something's getting in the way. But being in a structured environment where someone does a lot of the planning for you, like the military or hiring a secretary or marriage, really did help some. When I was in that environment, I stopped feeling like I was a bad person because I couldn't sit down and do what everyone else was doing. I also love that the dad doesn't get mad at Jack for his quirks. And Rusty's a real bro for helping Jack out and playing with him. Rusty's just a bro in general.
You're better at this than I am. For the love of Archimedes, I will never intentionally make a pun.
Self-care is important. I will scream it from the balconies. Or the veranda in their case. There are days where you love the people around you. You love your partner, your children, your family, your friends, but even then, sometimes, You just need 20 minutes.
This episode of Bluey is called Sheepdog.
It's not that you hate them or resent them or that you wish they weren't in your life like Bluey fears, but like the episode puts it, sometimes it's just hard work caring for them. Let me make it clear, I am not saying ignore your responsibilities. You need to be able to function. Don't take self-care weeks every week. But if you need a break, take one. It's made plain in other episodes that Chili is an introvert, especially in the episode The Beach, and a little bit in Relax. She likes to be on her own sometimes. So as a fellow introvert mom, I feel the I just need some time to myself in my soul. There are some days where both me and Firebrand wish we were extroverts because we feel bad that being around others for too long sometimes gets painful. But even if you're an extrovert, you need to take care of yourself too. Plus, this episode more strongly features one of my favorite side characters, Wendy. This woman sounds like she'd be a snooty Karen with her slightly posh accent, but turns out she's more of a rarity character. As soon as the kids explain what's going on, she gets on board. Wendy's a beast, especially in Ragdoll, and I love her for it. But I also have to give kudos to Bandit for doing his best to give his wife the space she desperately needs. And for the record, Firebrand is also very good at giving me this kind of space, especially on days where I've had something go horribly wrong and I need a reset. He and Bandit have a lot in common, really.
Hi, how would you like to save $200 a year on your energy bill?
Meh.
Oh, Bilby.
Kind of rare for a cartoon to have a sort of anti-cartoon / technology message, but you know what? I'll take it.
The pool.
ISFJ/momfriend vindication.
The claw.
Good. Teach kids early that Chuck E. Cheese is rigged.
Ice cream.
The Waltz of the Flowers bit just gets Firebrand rolling every time.
Double babysitter.
Ship.
Onesies.
A powerful and kid-friendly way of showing how infertility can affect people and those that love them.
Curry Quest.
A crash course on the monomyth, aka the hero's journey.
Camping.
The language of play is universal. Kids are kids, no matter the culture.
Copycat.
Probably one of the more explicit messages of death from a kid's cartoon. It's okay to be sad, but in the end, you have to accept that sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Takeaway.
You're only young once. Make the most of it. Your kids are only young ones. Especially make the most of it. Try not to stress about the little things, within reason, and let your kids be kids.
One thing I love about cartoons in general is the creative ways they utilize classical music, similar to the kinds of cartoons I grew up with that sparked my love of it. I was pleasantly surprised that Bluey followed suit, and we saw the typical suspects that often make it into cartoons. The Carmen Prelude, Mozart's Turkish March, Beethoven's Ode to Joy, Grieg's In the Hall of the Mountain King, excerpts from Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, and that's just to name a few. However, one song that I was absolutely not expecting, but am 100% on board with, is Gustav Holst's Jupiter.
This episode of Bluey is called Sleepytime.
Like, wow. The visuals during all of the space segments are just wonderfully surreal. And yeah, with the music syncing up with what you see, it feels like halfway between classic Looney Tunes and Disney's Fantasia. And then the non-space segments are great because they still affect the dream world. All that slapstick and suffering, but there's still so much love there. Oh yes, even when you put the kids down, they do not stay down. We're not at the point where they're getting up for a drink of water or potty at night yet, but given how they're currently fussing at night, we are expecting it. But really, the desire for your child's happiness and growth ultimately outweighs the desire to stay in bed. And of course, that message of hope at the end.
Remember, I'll always be here for you, even if you can't see me, because I love you.
You are loved, even if those that love you aren't nearby.
Real talk. Take away all the silly antics, the voice, the comedy, everything that you've ever seen of me. I'm going to tell you something straight from the soul. I'm absolutely terrified of being a bad mom.
This episode of Bluey is called Baby Race.
There are a lot of things in life I'm scared of, but the thought of my kids not wanting a relationship with me or thinking I'm a bad mother or anything like that, I can't take it. And I'm scared I'll do things wrong or that I'm not doing enough. A lot of people will say, well, if you're concerned about it, you're already way ahead of the game. But that doesn't make me feel better because worrying is one thing, but actually being a good parent is a whole other. We started watching Bluey right before I got off maternity leave. We started around late August, early September of 2023. I was struggling with postpartum depression so badly that my OBGYN and his nurse were worried about me. I cried a lot. I didn't sleep well, and there were moments I felt very attached from my babies because I was just so sad and tired. But when we got to Baby Race and Coco's mom Bella said those magic words,
You're doing great.
I just crumbled sobbing into Firebrand's arms. Everything came crashing into perspective. I was doing okay. I spent 9 months growing 2 beautiful kids. I survived an emergency C-section where I lost so much blood and my organs nearly shut down. I almost died. I was recovering. My babies were healthy. My babies loved me for me. No parent is perfect. It would be okay. Baby Race is my favorite Bluey episode because it helps me remember that I am the best mom for my kids because I do my best every day to be the best mom for my kids. That by trying, I am already succeeding. That worrying will make you miss the little things, like your baby reaching out to you when they want or need you, that make life so special. Heck, it's even applicable to you even if you don't have kids. If you worry so much about what others think of you or what others are doing, you miss the things that you can do and the special things going on in your life. Run your own race. And you know what? You're doing great.
Bluey is a special show to many people for many different reasons. For some, it provided a necessary bright spot during a global crisis where kids may not have been able to socialize and learn these kinds of lessons from their peers. For others, it gives them a different perspective on parenting and empathizing with children, showing us how they tick, what they respond to, and how to communicate with them in a way that they'll understand. There are so many good things about Bluey that it would take hours to talk about them all.
Perfect for both your child and your inner child. Bluey is probably the closest thing we have to a quality MLP replacement. I think you all know our thoughts on Gen 5, mostly due to our lack of any attention given to it. While Bluey doesn't have the fantastical plot elements and devious villains, the wholesome creativity and vibrant joy that reaches out to all demographics really strikes those MLP notes we've been missing since the show's finale in 2019.
And that's kinda the reason we haven't uploaded to the channel in a while. Friendship is magic. Well, we miss it. And Bluey has kind of filled that hole for us. Not to mention, our priorities shifted. The kids take priority. But we appreciate all of you for sticking around all this time.
So let us know if you liked the video and if you want to see any more Bluey related content. We have a lot of thoughts on the show and we love these models, so maybe the base could use some dogs running around.